Let's take a quick look at a unit overview you can use to teach about SARE, descriptions, adjectives, subject pronouns. It's kind of a hefty one. But since you know we're not grammar first, we're going to do this all within the context of teaching about famous Hispanics for Hispanic Heritage Month. So let's jump right in. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Ashley, aka Senior to Spanish, where we provide easy-to-use resources to save you time and energy while you're lesson planning. If you haven't been here before, you might not know that I put links to everything that I mentioned down in that description box below. And if you have any questions, feel free to just drop them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, we're gonna run through this unit description. I wanna try and do this in less than 5 minutes because my unit videos tend to get really long and I know you don't have time for that. I have a Gustar video that's like 20 minutes long that I walk you through the whole lesson plan. I have a Cognates unit video that's pretty long. We're just gonna try and get this done. So if you have any questions or you wish for more clarification, just ask. On day one, we're gonna introduce the subject pronouns. Teacher's just gonna go through them, talk about them really quickly, and then we're going to use them. You can either play with whiteboards or the low tango game. Both are really fun options to use with your whole class. And then we'll wrap up the day with a maze worksheet, which are one of my favorite options for just independent practice that's really fun. On day two, you are going to grab the maze worksheet from them and just collect that. And then you can either play the whiteboard game or the low tango game from yesterday. So if you did the whiteboard yesterday, I would do low tango today, or if you wanted to do both again, either way. And then we're going to spend the day with some stations. You know I love stations. These stations are all going to be using the subject pronouns that we've been talking about. So we're going to be doing some reading, writing, speaking, and listening with the subject pronouns in small groups moving around the classroom. If you need any help setting up stations or hearing about how I like to run them, check out my video here on stations in Spanish class. And then as a fast finisher for the day or a wrap up, you're going to send them the subject pronoun boom cards. If you're not familiar with boom cards, they're essentially digital flashcards that are auto-correcting, which is the best. So as students are working through them, it's going to tell them, ding, you're correct, or try again, which is really nice as they're working with something new. On to day three, we are going to be talking about adjective agreements. So they've been seeing this in examples all throughout so far. We're just going to kind of give them some tools to recognize the patterns that they've been introduced to, and then we're going to work with them. And one of my favorite ways to work with adjective agreement are scrambled sentences. So if you're not familiar with scrambled sentences, it's exactly what they sound like. They're going to get all of the words that belong in a sentence, and they have to unscramble them or put them in order. The caveat with the adjective agreement version is that not only do they have to put them in order, but they're also going to choose the correct form of the adjective. So masculine, feminine, singular, plural, and they just pick one. So the sentences are a lot shorter, which is pretty manageable for novices, but they're also going to make that decision. Then we'll wrap up the day with a read and draw worksheet, which is also just what it sounds like. They'll read sentences describing people and they will draw an illustration to show their comprehension. On day four, they're going to turn in that read and draw sheet, and then they're going to do a quick adjective matching activity so they can just reinforce that understanding as a little bit of a warm-up before we get into a gallery walk. Gallery walks are one of my all-time favorite activities because they give students a ton of input. They get to be up and moving and they don't even realize how much Spanish they're using. So they're so into it since they're walking around the classroom, they get to move at their own pace, but they're all paragraphs of Spanish and they're super comprehensible, so they feel really successful. The thing about gallery walks is that they're all going to finish at different times because they're working at their own pace. So I always recommend having a fast finisher. So today's fast finisher is a comparison sheet where they're going to compare themselves to one of the readings. Okay, on to day five, they're going to do a grid puzzle, which is where they match up the sides of the squares. Then they're going to play Guess Who, and you can do this in pairs, you can do this in small groups, you can do it as a whole class. I like starting Guess Who as a whole class to model how to play it and give them some time to let their brains really warm up, and then letting them move into small groups. Then we're going to end the day with a listen, write, and draw activity, which is, again, what it sounds like: listening, writing what they hear, illustrating to show comprehension. On day six, we're going to play Adivina Quién, which is Guess Who. They have to ask me questions to try and determine who I have in mind. If you want to, you can do 20 questions, but you can just also have them play and ask until they get it. Then we're going to play a Find Someone Who. Sometimes people call this a human bingo game. Either way, they're going to be up, walking around, asking each other questions, and answering each other in Spanish. Finally, we'll play Corre and Círculos, but just for a twist, because we just did a gallery walk, so instead of up and looking at the walls, what they're going to do with this version of Corre is they're going to play it like a relay race. And if you haven't played it like a relay race before, I highly recommend checking out this video that explains how to do that. The last piece of this unit is a wax museum project, and I have a whole other video where I've walked you through how to introduce it, how to set it up, and how to have students present. So I won't go through that all again here. If you want more details on that project, you can check out that video here. Otherwise, that is the whole unit that I have for you. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, make sure you drop me a comment down below and ask. Otherwise, you can find everything that I've talked about in the description box. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.